Girivaradari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjan Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjan Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna again. We'll start off by reading from Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita. I'm just going to share the screen. I can't seem to pick that one up. Prabhu, can you help me with that, please?
Shall I share the screen in that case? Is it okay for you?
Please, Prabhu.
Okay, thank you. I'm just sharing. So is it visible now?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Prabhu. Yes. Can you enlarge it, Prabhu? Is that okay?
Mataji, is it possible for you to read or it is too small?
I think I can read, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Prabhupada is speaking on behalf of the Supreme Consciousness, and he offers his day-to-day activities as an example of dovetailing with the Supreme. I'm here always working at something, reading or writing, something, reading or writing 24 hours. Simply when I feel hungry, I take some food, and simply when I feel sleepy, I go to bed. Otherwise, I don't feel fatigued. You can ask Mr. David whether I am not doing this. Of course, the Swami's daily routine doesn't require certification from David Allen, and any of his regular visitors can see that he is transcendental. His personal life is a perfect example of dovetailing with the Supreme Consciousness. Prabhupada has always kept himself dovetailed with the Supreme. He had been perfectly dovetailed in Vrindavan and had no personal need or motive to come to America or live on the Bowery. It was for others' sake that he had come to the Bowery, and it is for others' benefit that he is speaking tonight. His spiritual master and Lord Krishna want the conditioned souls to come out of their illusion before it is too late. Speaking vigorously, even until he becomes physically exhausted, sometimes shouting, sometimes pleading, sometimes laughing. He gives his audience as much as he feels they can take. As the emissary of Krishna and the disciplic succession, he can boldly shout that everyone should dovetail with the Supreme. He can speak as strongly as he likes, but as long as they're willing to listen. He is sadhu. The Sanskrit word means saint, and one who cuts. And he repeats the same message that for thousands of years, sadhus of the original Vedic culture have spoken. He is reviving the eternal spirit of the Vedic wisdom to cut the knots of ignorance and illusion. So everything is illusion from the beginning of our birth, and that illusion is so strong, it is difficult to get out of. The whole thing is illusion. Birth is illusion. The body is illusion. The bodily relationship and the country are illusion. The father is illusion. The mother is illusion. The wife is illusion. The children are illusion. Everything is illusion. And we are contacting that illusion, thinking we are very learned, advanced. We are imagining so many things, but as soon as death comes, the actual fact, then we forget everything. We forget our country. We forget our relatives. We forget our wife, children, father, mother. Everything is gone. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So we're going to start reading off. I'll try and share the screen. Can everyone see the screen?
No, Mataji.
No?
No, not yet.
Okay, I shall try again. Is it visible now?
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. Okay, so we'll start off with our pranams. Om Ajnanatimirandhyasya Jnana Shalakaya Chaksur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurubhe Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastha Bhutale Srimati Janananda Goswami Iti Namine. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastha Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvichesha Shunivari Pashtita Deshatarine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So Hare Krishna everyone, and welcome again. Thank you to Shama Mataji for giving me this opportunity to say something, and I hope that it will be beneficial for all of you. And I'm certainly not qualified. I'm depending totally on your mercy and the mercy of Guru and Krishna to say something that would be of benefit to all of us. And ultimately, it is for my self-purification. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. We're looking at Canto 4. Just enlarge this if I could. No, it doesn't work. No. I think I've just lost the screen. Can you still see the Srimad Bhagavatam screen?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, that's good. Oh, yeah, okay, got it. Okay, so we're reading from Canto 4, Chapter 24, Text 66. Right. So I'll start. Ramatam ucce iti kirta chintaya pravriddha lobham vishaye sulalasam Ram apragmataha sahasa vipadyase Ishullili hanuhi ivakum antakaha. Pramatam uche iti kritya chintaya pravrida lobham vishaye sulalasam tavam apramata sahasabhipadyase kishulilo haniyo hir ivakam antakaha Pramatam uche iti kritya chintaya pravrida lobham vishaye sulalasam Tapam apramataha sahasabhipadyase Ishulili hanohir evakum antakaha. Haribol. Would someone like to recite the shlok?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Pramattamuccheriti krita chintaya pravritta lobam vishayeshu lalasham tvam apramatta shasha abhipattashi shulalalirano aiva umantaha. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Would anyone else?
Hare Krishna Mataji, I am also trying.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Pramottamuccheriti krita chintaya pravritta lobam vishayeshu lalasham Tvamapramatta sahasavipattase Shulalilihano hirivatu mantakaha. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Pramuchairiti kritya chintaya pravridalobham vishayeshu lalasham tvamapramutta sahasabhi padyase shullelihana hiri bakhuma antakaha. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I am also trying.
Thank you, Mataji.
प्रमत्तमुच्चरिति कृतचिन्तया प्रवृद्धलोभं विषयेषु लालसं तम् अपरान्तः सहस्रभिपादसे सुल्लेलिहान अहिरिव कुम् अन्तकः. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Would anyone else like to recite? Okay, we'll move on to the synonyms. Would anyone like to read the synonyms, please?
Yes, Mataji, I can read.
Thank you.
Pramattam, persons who are mad. Uche, loudly. Iti, thus. Kritya, to be done. Chintaya, by such desire. Pravriddha, very much advanced. Lobham, greed. Visayesu, in material enjoyment. La lasham, so desiring. Tvam, your lordship. Apramattaha, completely in transcendence. Sahasa, all of a sudden. Abhipaddashe, seizes them. Sut, hungry. Lilihanaha, by the greedy tongue. A he, snake. Eva, like. Akum, mouse. Antakaha, destroyer. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Would someone like to read the translation? Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Okay, Mataji, I am reading the translation.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. My dear Lord, all living entities within this material world are mad after planning for things, and they are always busy with a desire to do this or that. This is due to uncontrollable greed. The greed for material enjoyment is always existing in the living entity, but your Lordship is always alert, and in due course of time, you strike him. Just as snake seizes a mouse and very easily swallows him. Hare Krishna.
Nice. Thank you, Prabhu. Any volunteers to read the purport?
Hare Krishna Mataji. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Everyone is greedy and everyone makes plan for material enjoyment. In his lust for material enjoyment, the living entity is described as a madman. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 3:27, Prakriti kriyamanani gunoi karmani shardusha ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti mannate. The bewildered spirit soul, under the influence of three modes of material nature,
thinks himself to be one, to be the doer of activities which are actually carried out by the nature. Everything is enacted by the law of nature, and these laws are under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The atheists or unintelligent men do not know this. They are busy making their own plans, and big nations are busy expanding their empires. And yet, we know that in due course of time, many empires have come into existence and have been destroyed. Many aristocratic families were created by people in their extreme madness, but we can see that in due course of time, those families and empires have all been destroyed. But still, the foolish atheists do not accept the supreme authority of the Lord. Such foolish people unnecessarily conquered their own duties without referring to the supreme authority of the Lord. The so-called political leaders are busy making plans to advance the material prosperity of their nation. But factually, these political leaders only want to be exalted position for themselves. Due to their greed for material position, they falsely present themselves as leaders before the people and collect their votes, although they are completely under the grip of the laws of material nature. These are some of the faults of the modern civilization. Without taking to God consciousness and accepting the authority of the Lord, the living entities become ultimately confused and frustrated in their plan-making attempts. Due to their unauthorized plan for economic development, the price of commodities is rising daily all over the world, so much so that it has become difficult for the poorer classes, and they are suffering the consequences. And due to lack of Krishna consciousness, people are being fooled by the so-called leaders and plan makers. Consequently, the sufferings of the people are increasing. According to the law of nature, which are backed by the Lord, nothing can be permanent within this material world. Therefore, everyone should be allowed to take shelter of the Absolute in order to be saved. In this regard, Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 5:29 says, Bhaktaram yagna tapasam sarvaloka mahesharam suridam sarva bhutanam gyadva mam shanti mrichati. The sages, knowing me as the ultimate purpose of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme Lord of all planets and demigod, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attain peace from the pangs of material miseries. If one wants peace of mind and tranquility in society, he must accept the fact that the real enjoyer is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is the proprietor of everything all over the universe, and He is the supreme friend of all living entities as well. By understanding this, people can become happy and peaceful individually and collectively. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. I'll stop sharing that. Yeah. So, and I'll pronounce Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, as we said, this is 4:24:66, and it is actually a continuation of the song that is sung by Lord Shiva. Yeah. So I'm just gonna minimize that. I just need to sort out something on my computer. Sorry, I've got so many screens open here. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we'll just do a brief recap, right? In the last few shlokas, we've read that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he is the cause of all causes. And as Paramatma, he is seated in the heart of every living entity. And being in the heart of every living entity, he knows that living entity the best. And Lord Krishna also knows what the desires of that living entity is, so how they want to enjoy. And you'd find that also we've discussed is that there's increased laboring, so lots of work going on for sense enjoyment, right? And it's all for the accumulation of material things, for so-called happiness in this material world. And Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, and this was mentioned in the previous shlokas as well, in 10:34, Mrityu sarvaharas chaham, I am all devouring death. So the Lord is just like death to the atheists, right? For he takes away everything they accumulate in this material world. And now this leads us to today's shlok, which is, as I said, a continuation from text 33 of this chapter 24 of the song sung by Lord Shiva. So Srila Prabhupada gives a very powerful purport, and that's as usual, isn't it? Where he's giving the devastating effect of greed, but then he also gives us the formula to escape from this greed trap. Now, the very first sentence of the purport is, everyone is greedy and everyone makes plans for material enjoyment. So Srila Prabhupada is highlighting from the very beginning that we are all making our plans to enjoy in this material world. Our plans highlight a feature called greed. And today's talk is going to be based a lot on this greed. So greed is a commonly used term, and it's defined as a very intense and selfish desire for something, especially for wealth or for power or for food. And in a study done in the Netherlands in 2022, greed is analyzed to have three sides. It's known as the good, the bad, and the ugly. So according to those researchers, greed is good in the sense that people get materially opulent, right? They're working harder, they have more sexual partners, and they enjoy higher family incomes. Okay, this is basically what we are seeing in the world today, isn't that so? So they're saying in their terms, it's good. Those were all the good things, you know, working harder, having more partners, and getting higher family incomes. But then they said it's also bad because the greedy individuals tend to harm others by taking more than what they actually require. And in order to get this more, they work in very devious ways, to the point where they get involved in immoral behaviors, and also a lot of corruption takes place. Right, so we've seen the good and we've seen the bad of this material greed. The ugly side of this material greed is that they tend to be less happy and less satisfied with what they have. And they don't trust people and they are more envious. So even though they are working hard, they're just not reaching that happiness. They're not reaching that satisfaction. And we know, you know, from social media, you hear of so many celebrities committing suicide. Even though they have so much, they may have the fame, they may have all the wealth, but they don't have the happiness. They don't have the satisfaction. So no matter which side we look at it, the good, the bad, or the ugly, materialists basically are not satisfied, okay? So interestingly, greed is a very common feature in human nature. It's actually quite inherent for a human to be greedy. And most of us have it in varying degrees, you know. It could be in that very minute degree, maybe when we see all that lovely prasadam sometimes, or it could be to a higher degree. This greed, as I said, it's innate. It happens in all human beings to some extent. And we see it very nicely in little children, you know. Just not so long ago, I was at the airport and we were in a long queue. And there was a mother there with her child in a pushchair. And the mother was so lovely to the child, talking so sweetly, giving her toys to play with, keeping her entertained and happy. And then after a while, the mother said, "You know what, baby? I am so thirsty. Can I have some water from your bottle?" And what do you think the little girl said? Anyone?
No, mom, can you try somewhere else? So she doesn't want to share.
That's right. Yeah, that was totally what was going on. She just went, "Mine, mine. This is my bottle. This is baby's bottle." And you know, it really like struck me how that greed is there. And this is what is happening in the world, isn't it? It's mine, it's mine. So her response is not unique. It's not just children, but adults adopt that same mentality. But of course, the degree that adults adopt it is far greater, to the point where there's so much harm that is being taken as well. So that's the mentality of it's mine, it's mine. So this behavior just indicates that self-centeredness, that self-absorption, that they're not looking out for the needs of others, but it's all about me, me, me. So this quality of greed is with us from time immemorial. It's this quality that has brought us to this material world. And we wanted to enjoy, just like Krishna. We were not satisfied and appreciative of what we had. We wanted more. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, in 7.2.21, it's described how all the living entities in this material world have come here only because they wanted to be equal to Krishna in enjoyment, and have thus been sent here to be conditioned by material nature in different degrees. But this material world is dukhalya mashasvatam. It's a place of misery. No matter how much one endeavors here, there's no real satisfaction. There's no real enjoyment. And in the Upanishads, it is described how we cannot quench our thirst by drinking salty water. We can drink as much as we want, but the satisfaction will not be there. And there is a famous German-American psychologist called Erich Fromm. So here is someone who doesn't have knowledge of our Vedic culture, but he had said that greed is a bottomless pit which exhausts the person in an endless effort to satisfy the need without ever reaching satisfaction. So that sums it up, isn't it? So whether we view it from a material perspective or from a spiritual perspective, greed is not an acceptable or beneficial quality for us to have. But still, knowing all of this, the materialist will have this drive to get more and more so that he can enjoy and enjoy. He works very, very hard throughout the whole week. And he's always asking, where's the money? How can I make the money to enjoy more and more? And this behavior is in the mode of passion. And we're seeing that mode of passion and also the mode of ignorance being quite blatant now over this so-called festive period, where people are celebrating so much. But the question is, how are they celebrating? Are they celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ? And, you know, it's confirmed in Bhagavad Gita in 14:12. It's explained that when there's an increase in the mode of passion, the symptoms of great attachment, fruitive activity, intense endeavor, and uncontrollable desire and hankering develop. And Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam in 7.9.25 how we cannot stop a blazing fire if we continuously pour ghee on it. Right? So if we pour ghee, we know that fire is just going to get bigger and bigger. So similarly, one cannot satisfy oneself by having increasing plans for sense enjoyment. This blazing fire, Baba Mahadavagni, the forest fire of material existence, will just occur automatically without endeavor. But as long as there is an increase in this blazing fire of desires, one cannot be happy. With greed, there's an increase in plans. But our plans are temporary and they are imperfect. Yeah. So we find that the greed for food leads to obesity and related complications. The greed for intoxication leads to deterioration in the mental and physical health of a person, and it leads to social problems as well. The greed to have sex leads to abortions and unwanted progeny. And the greed for mass consumerism and economic development is leading to the destruction of earthly resources, which was so evident at the moment, isn't it? So Mahatma Gandhi had said that the earth provides enough to satisfy every man's need, but not every man's greed. This greed for power is leading to conflicts and wars. You know, in recent times, we're hearing more of conflicts and wars. And so many people are being affected by this. And, you know, the list can go on and on. But the point I'm trying to establish here is that with greed comes suffering. And we can see suffering increasing. We can see moral values decreasing. This greed is just overcoming intelligence. And the desire to get what one wants is overpowering, and it's increasing the suffering. So I'll just illustrate this with a little story, just a simple story. There was a little boy, and he saw his mom putting some lollies in a jar. And this jar had a very small opening to it. So what he did was, he thought, I am going to get those lollies. And out of his greed, he put his hand into the jar and he grabbed a whole lot. But as he was trying to pull his hand out of the jar, what happened? What happened? His hand got stuck. But he didn't want to let go of the lollies. That's his. He wants it. So in that situation, he was suffering. And he was crying, but still, he wouldn't let go of the lollies, right? Because it was his. So there's suffering of the material body. And generally with greed, there is also degradation of the soul. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita in 16:21, where it's noted that the three gates leading to hell are lust, anger, and greed. That's it, greed. So Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that a sane man who does not want to glide down to the species of demoniac life must try to give up these three enemies, which can kill the self to such an extent that there will be no possibility of liberation from his material entanglement. Now, can you think of any Shastric examples of personalities with greed that led to their downfall? Anyone?
Dhritarashtra's greed.
Very nice. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he wanted.
Duryodhan's, yeah.
Sorry, Prabhu.
His son Duryodhan.
Yes, of course. That's right. Thank you, Prabhu. Yes, Duryodhan was the same. Yes. Anyone else you can think of? Our scriptures are so good, isn't it? Because it has everything in it. It has everything. Whatever knowledge we seek, we can get it from our scriptures.
Mataji, another example is Nahush Maharaj, who was very much his greed for enjoyment with Shochi Mata
That's
led
right.
to his downfall.
Exactly. That's right, Prabhu. Thank you so much. So we can see there are many examples. Another one is Hiranyakashipu. Right. And we'll read about him more in Canto 7. And his greed was to attain the power, position of Brahma. And that led him to do severe penances. So basically his thinking was that Lord Brahma had done severe penances and Lord Brahma has gotten this post now. And he thought, if I do those kind of penances, I can actually become or be in that position of Lord Brahma as well. So he had this intense greed to occupy that position. So he went through great austerities. I mean, in that valley of Mandara Hill, he was performing austerities to the point where he was standing on his toes, right? And he was keeping his arms upwards and looking towards the sky. So he had done this for many, many years. Right?
Sorry.
I was just trying, to stand for a short while. It doesn't take long before, you can't cope with that. So he, for many, many years, such a difficult position, but he did it because he wanted to attain his goal. And with the time that passed on, his body became covered by an anthill and by grass and bamboo sticks. And his, all the insects and the ants and so on were just devouring his body. They had eaten his skin, his fat, and his flesh. They had his blood. So basically what was remaining was his bones. But look at the extent he went through. Total sacrifice of his body. And in today's purport, Srila Prabhupada is explaining how in his lust for material enjoyment, the living entity is described as a madman, so desperate to just satisfy the senses, isn't it? So because of his greed to have Lord Brahma's position, he remained fixed in his endeavor to do his austerities. He wanted what was truly not his, and he thought that he was invincible. So similarly, in the material world, people are trying to become masters through various devices, but ultimately, one is a servant of his servants. And being the servant of his servant the servant of the senses, being the servant of the senses, Hiranyakashipu wanted to become the master of the whole universe. So he transgressed the Shastric laws. And we know that as soon as one disobeys the laws of Shastra, one immediately enters upon the path of destruction. So very simply, if we don't follow the rules or the laws and regulations, we are bound to head for some trouble. We follow the man-made rules so nicely. Like we know if we drive on the wrong side of the road, we're bound to meet an accident. If I drive through a red light, I'm going to get a fine or I'm going to be involved in an accident, right? So very readily, we follow these man-made rules. But why is it difficult to follow God's rules and regulations, God's plans, right? So in Srimad Bhagavatam, in 7:15-19, it is said that because of the greed for the sake of senses, the spiritual strength, education, austerity, and reputation of a devotee or Brahmin who is not self-satisfied dwindle, and his knowledge gradually vanishes. So Srila Prabhupada mentions in today's purport, these are some of the faults of modern civilization. Without taking to God consciousness and accepting the authority of the Lord, the living entities become ultimately confused and frustrated in plan-making attempts. So we can't expect to come out successful when we go against what is in the Shastras. There's always going to be a consequence that we're not going to like. And also in today's shlok, Srila Prabhupada, or in the shlok itself, it's explained that the greed for material enjoyment is always existing in the living entity. But your Lordship is always alert, and in due course of time, you strike him just as a snake seizes a mouse and very easily swallows him. So Hiranyakashipu may have seen himself as great and awesome for what he had done, right? He had great plans, but eventually he endured a very painful death. So he demonstrates to us that our plans are temporary and imperfect. Now let's look at another Shastric example, right? A little boy who wanted a kingdom greater than Brahmalok, the abode of Lord Brahma, his great-grandfather. His great-grandfather, yeah. So who was that 5-year-old boy?
Dhruva Maharaj.
Dhruva Maharaj. So here again, he had a desire. Initially, it was for sense gratification, right? He wanted this great opulence. But the striking difference between Hiranyakashipu and Dhruva Maharaj is that Dhruva Maharaj accepts Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And of course, Hiranyakashipu did not. So Dhruva Maharaj's greed was transformed from materialism to spiritualism. And in his attempt to perform penances, to have greater material opulence than his great-grandfather, he actually gained the perfection of life. So having seen the Lord, he said that he was fully satisfied and he did not wish to have anything more from the Lord. So you know how this is famously said that he said that I had been searching out some pieces of broken glass, but instead I had found the most valuable
Diamond.
diamond jewel. Yes. So we see how glorious that is, isn't it? So even though initially his desire was for sense gratification, we can see that through devotional service, his desire was purified to attain self-realization. And we can learn from his example that there is hope for the degraded consciousness to be elevated, right? So we see that both Hiranyakashipu and Dhruva Maharaj had plans. Hiranyakashipu's plans was for sense gratification, and Dhruva Maharaj's plans were for self-realization. So in his formula for plans to enjoy, Dhruva Maharaj added Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You know how it is said that everything we endeavor for in this material world can be millions and billions of zeros. It's still worth nothing. But Krishna is that number one before all of those millions and billions. He adds value to it. Right? So similarly, we need to have Krishna in our lives always. Right? So as I mentioned before, we've all experienced greed, or we all experience it still to some degree. It's just an inherent nature of the human being. And it has two components to it. One is wanting more, and the other one is just not being satisfied with what we have. And Srila Prabhupada explains in Bhagavad Gita in 337 that lust, anger, and greed are the causes of the conditioned soul's bondage in this material world. And also in the Leelamrit, it is explained how as soon as death comes, the actual fact, this is like what we read today, right? Everything goes, whether it is our family, our house, our work, whatever positions we have, everything goes. With death, everything goes. So at the end of the day, what's the point? Everything's a useless endeavor if it is done for sense gratification. It's just temporary enjoyment. The purpose of our life is for self-realization. And the goal of our life is to develop Krishna Priyam. Samsiddham Hari Toshanam. We need to do what is pleasing for Krishna. That's what is important. That is what Krishna wants of us. So in Bhagavad Gita 14:17, it is said that every sane man should give up these three gates that are leading to hell, right? The lust, the anger, and the greed. Because it's only leading to the destruction or the degradation of our soul. The sense gratification just keeps us entangled in this material world. You know, just attending to bodily needs for the satisfaction of the body is like the lady who is cleaning and decorating the bird cage and totally neglecting the bird who is representing our soul. So therefore, one has to stop this plan making and adopt a higher taste, God's plans, right? So the question arises now, how can we make this conversion? How can we get out of the greed trap? Any answers to that question?
By devotional service
Haribol Mataji, yes.
and staying in ISKCON,
Yes.
association with devotees,
Kirtan of the
with
devotees.
Nittam Bhagavata Sevaya. So all the Prabhupada has given to
Very
follow the all things.
Thank you, Mataji, and thank you, Prabhu. So even in today's reading from Prabhupada's Leelamrit, he says, so in every sphere of life, we have to know whether the Lord is satisfied. That technique we have to learn. Then it is as easy as anything. We have to stop creating our own plans and thoughts and take the perfect plans from the Supreme Lord and execute them. That will become the perfection of life. So simply by practicing sadhana bhakti, this devotional service, we learn that we don't live for the sense gratification. We learn how to use our senses, knowing that our senses are for our self-preservation and not for gratification. And our senses are just not meant for that unrestricted sense enjoyment. So we know sarvopadi vinirmuktam tat parat vina nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam bhakti uchyate. So this bhakti, this devotional service means engaging all our senses in the service of the Lord, because he is our master, yeah? And when the spirit soul renders service unto the Supreme, there are two side effects. One is freed from material designations, and one senses becomes purified simply by employing the senses in the service of the Lord. So the devotee becomes freed from these material designations and anyabilashita shunyam, right, situated in a transcendental position, free from all material desires. In this state, the devotee attains the goal of his life. His greed is now transcendental. His greed is to obtain Krishna. Srila Prabhupada is an exemplary example of this. You know, he had a great desire, a great greed. This is the transcendental greed to spread Krishna consciousness. And despite any obstacles, he just persevered. And we know that Srila Prabhupada is successful. His success is celebrated even today. He always looked at ways on how he can spread Krishna consciousness. And today, with it being Christmas, I'd like to acknowledge Jesus Christ. Srila Prabhupada always expressed great respect and admiration for Jesus Christ, because Jesus Christ was spreading the words of God. But unfortunately, or really sadly, we find that most of his followers are now choosing to wine, dine, and dance during this period of time. So we know how the sales of meat and alcohol just escalate during these times. Now, there are also many other examples from our Shastra on personalities who have sacrificed everything for the pleasure of the Lord, having this greed to please the Lord. Can you think of any Shastric examples?
Please, can you repeat the question, Mataji, please?
we have many Shastric examples of devotees who please the Lord, and they would do everything in their power to make sure that the Lord is pleased, even if they were suffering. Anything of Haridas Thakur?
Yes.
Yeah. He was beaten in 22 marketplaces.
Prahlad Maharaj.
Prahlad Maharaj as well. Yes, Mataji. Yes. But when we look at these examples, like even with Srila Prabhupada, even though they all endure so many hardships, they never give up that desire to please the Lord. That is their topmost endeavor.
Saragoswamis.
Yes, Mataji. Yes. You know, having like a quarter cup of buttermilk a day.
Yes.
But yes, so what we can do is we can't imitate them, but we follow in their footsteps. They are our guides, yeah? So there is one price that one must pay to get Krishna. The price is intense eagerness. This intense eagerness is called lolyam or greed. So now you can see how greed has been transformed. In the mundane sense, it's just not acceptable. But now we are asked to have this greed. Rupa Goswami says in the Padyavali, he's got this verse, pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness cannot be had even by pious activity in hundreds and thousands of lives. It can be attained only by paying one price, that is intense greed. To obtain it, if bhakti is available somewhere, one must purchase it without delay. Yeah. So here Rupa Goswami says that we must have this intense greed to obtain Krishna, right? We can do, you know, so many pious activities, but even that is not going to make us get Krishna. Devotional service is what gives us that everlasting happiness, that everlasting satisfaction. So when we focus on devotional service, working on pleasing Krishna, we experience so much of happiness. But we realize this is not enough. I want to do more. I want to do more, right? And I know all of you have experienced that. Can you share your experiences, please? When you're doing a service, give me examples of services that you would do, and you think, I want to do more. Anyone?
Yes, when we do the deity service, you know, when I'm putting the dress and everything, it's the time is finishing, but still we think we can put this one, this jewelry, this, that. So it's happen always.
That's very nice, Mataji, and that is so true. And
Yeah.
also, you know, during deity worship, the thought is, how can I please Krishna? You know, you want to give him the best, you want to dress him the best, isn't that so? And, you know, there's other examples as well, like when we are cooking for the Lord.
Food, yeah.
Yeah, we always want to do more and more. You know, what would the Lord like to eat? How can I please him? Of course, our endeavors are minuscule. Lord Krishna is more looking at our intention. It's our consciousness that is most important. Sometimes whilst doing our services, we may not achieve the target that we're hoping for.
Our body became tired, but your mind always think we can do this one, this, that one.
That is right. Right.
Yes.
And we still continue, isn't that so? Sorry, you want to say something, Prabhu?
Yeah, you know, the clock strikes in. Yeah, stop it because time is over. You have to produce it before the time.
Yes. So we're so governed by time in this world, isn't that so? But yeah, whatever we're doing, we still try and endeavor more and more. If we're doing book distribution, you know, we set a target. And when we reach that target, we're still thinking, no, I think I should do a little bit more, you know? So there's always this greed, this desire to do more and more because we want to please Krishna to the best that we possibly can. Okay, so when we look at desire, so just to summarize quickly, yeah? The desires of the spiritual and material world are like gold and iron, respectively. This is described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. that even the gold and iron are metals. There's a vast difference between their values. So our plans are imperfect and temporary, and it leads to the degradation of the soul. Nothing can be permanent within this material world. Therefore, everyone should be allowed to take shelter of the Lord in order to be saved. The devotee dovetails his greed in Krishna consciousness and accepts that Krishna is the supreme, he is the supreme personality of Godhead. Krishna is the supreme proprietor and the supreme enjoyer. Bhaktaram Yagnatapasan Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. And now to conclude, I just like to give a summary of an excerpt from an article by His Holiness Srila Gaur Govinda Swami. So he describes how a bumblebee wanders everywhere, going to various types of flowers. And one of those flowers is the Ketaki flower. Now, this flower grows on a tree that has lots of thorns or prickles, right? So when the bumblebee is going in this tree, its wings get torn a lot. It goes through a lot of hardships. But it's the scent of that flower that attracts him to it. So he ignores his pain. He ignores the troubles he's going through. His only desire is to get to that flower. He's thinking, where to go now? Can I get shelter in this place where there's no pain and affliction? Where can I get the peace? And after wandering a lot, he comes to a lotus flower. And he experiences the cooling, soothing effect there. He takes shelter inside the lotus flower. He sucks the sweet honey there, and he gets nourishment. Now, similarly, the Jiva-Atma, this conditioned soul, wanders and wanders through innumerable universes and through innumerable species of life in this material world. And it endures more and more suffering, misery, and torture. There's no cooling effect in the material world because this world is like the blazing forest fire, samsara davanala. After wandering through innumerable universes and innumerable species of life, right? We've got 8.4 million species of life. The fortunate soul comes to the lotus feet of our Guru and takes shelter in the cooling shade there. And just like how the bumblebee sucks the honey from the lotus flower, similarly, the Guru Padma, the lotus feet of the Sri Guru, allows the Jiva, who is compared to the bumblebee, to suck the nice honey, whereby he gets nourishment and also that loving happiness. And when the sun rises, the lotus blossoms, and similarly the petals of the Guru Padma will open when it sees the intense desire and crying in the heart of the suffering soul to go back to Godhead and get Krishna. This crying for bhakti is like the rising of the sun. So by taking to devotional service, under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, one develops the greed to attain Krishna Prem so that we can go back home, back to Godhead. And with open arms, Lord Krishna is waiting to receive us. So with that, I will end. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So thank you so much, everyone, for your kind attention. Thank you for your participation. And we'll have some reflections and realizations.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam.
What a beautiful explanation of the text. So nicely, especially the last example. Such a beautiful explanation that shows even in this material world, we are in pain, but there is a place where you can get the peace. And that is the lotus feet of the Lord. And that is only obtainable by your hard work, by sincere efforts, under the shelter of bona fide Guru, and that connects to Lord Krishna. And that is the peaceful state of our life, and that is the ultimate source. So beautifully explained. And the other thing at the start, your explanation about the greed, such a beautiful note I could try to make it. Yeah, three types of greed: good, bad, and ugly. So important to understand the impact of those three words is really amazing. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Great kind words, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, very nice class as always.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, so just my takeaway point from your discussion, our greed should be the lotus feet of Lord Krishna.
Hare Bol.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you very much for the very nice class, and particularly bringing out the central theme of the verse, that our problem in this material world is because of the false knowledge that we are thinking that by our own sense enjoyment we can become happy, but everything will go in course of time and everything will end. But what will remain to make our life permanent is to take shelter of the Supreme Lord, and that is the ultimate goal. But all these are extraneous, and with the loss of the body, everything which we consider as ourself will go. But when we take the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, uh, giving aside our greed, material greed in other words, and when it is transformed to transcendental greed to have the lotus feet of the Lord, then our journey to the is in the right direction, and if we remain there serving the Lord with the greed of getting him with the mercy of the Vaishnavas and and our spiritual master, we can attain that goal, and that is the pleasing place in this blazing fire of material existence. And so nicely bringing out for through your lectures. Thank you for that, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Hare Krishna. I think we can close for today.
Okay.
So have a
Hare Krishna Mataji, Devi Pranam.
Hare Krishna,
Thank you
Prabhu.
for a wonderful class.
Thank you.
Just amazing how you analyze the whole concept breeds. And the example you gave was so nice, especially of the monkey holding, trying to get the nut out. This is the situation of most of us. We know we want to get it, but we get trapped. So we need a special person to guide us to let go. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very difficult. And another example of the bee was so empathetic, so illustrious to illustrate this concept with. Thank you very much for enlightening this point. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhayeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta koti vaishnav vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna Saradiya Mataji ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to assembled devotees. Hare Krishna.